Hello.
Awesome. We're still letting people in. Yeah,
That's great.
it's so good to see everybody.
Oh my gosh. Tim, here's someone I have not seen in a minute. Hey, Tom. Hey, Tim. You know, when you see old friends from around the country, it's so nice.
Yeah, this is my favorite um uh, day of the month, like when we can hang out on a random Thursday. Um, all right. We're gonna let people in as they come in, but good evening, everybody. My name's Aaron Kacharski. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you've been coming since the beginning, I love it. You're still here. We're do virtual sessions pretty much the last Thursday of every month. We try to keep it as close to that as possible. This year we have a series that is focused on Operation Understanding. If you don't know what Operation Understanding is, Operation Understanding, it's the 50th anniversary of an event called Operation Understanding. So in 1976, there was um, uh, celebrities and authors and astronauts and faces of people that America recognized came together and started talking about how recovery status and that addiction is a health issue and should be treated that way. And so we thought that on the 50th year, we can kind of like check in, see like what are we still working to understand and what are we still learning about and what's going well in the movement. And so we've had this series that really kind of talks about that, and we're trying to highlight different things each month really to help that continuation of working to reduce the stigma around substance use disorder, the stigma of people in recovery, of family members that are impacted. There's enough stigma to go around, right? Our friends in the mental health community. Um, and so I'm excited about tonight's workshop around Stigma-Free Zones and Stigma-Free Colorado campaign. Our good friend from Hard Beauty is here, Raquel Garcia. And the first time I heard about stigma-free zones, I think it was like really under the umbrella of like mental health. When I was in New Jersey, like there was like towns that adopted or businesses that would adopt stigma that would say they're stigma-free, and I was like really curious, like what does that mean? And so we're gonna get to learn about that, and these are things that can be adopted within your communities and within your businesses or your organizations or whatnot. And so before we get before I pass things on to Raquel, we have two virtual workshops in July, and so I'm going to put them uh, in the chat. The first one's on the 14th, I believe. Yes, Tuesday, July 14th at 7 p.m. We have hundreds of community events across the country that are associated with Operation Understanding, and Jacqueline's going to help out by helping people to, if you need support with your event, if you know of an event that you want it to kind of sit under the umbrella of Operation Understanding, you can add it to our website, which is recovery2026.org. If you go there right now, you can see the events that people are already planning in communities across the country. So if you have like an event that's already like you have a date, you have a location. That's all you kind of need to kind of add it to the Operation Understanding universe in the community events. And we will help you with those events. And so that workshop is July 14th. And then the last Thursday is Understanding Recovery and Accessibility. Our good friend Stancil Tootle in Georgia is going to be hosting that. And so that should be the last Thursday of the month. And both of those um, registration pages are now in the chat. So you can go ahead and get registered. Um, I'm still letting people in as I'm speaking here, and so sorry if I stalled out there. And then the last thing, we always have um, a post workshop survey with our friends at Opioid Response Network, and so I'm going to put that survey in the chat now, and you'll probably see it a couple times throughout the workshop. But please have that open. You can open it now, but don't fill it out um, until the end of the workshop because you're going to be like, wow, that was an amazing workshop, and we want me to get all that feedback afterwards. And so, thank you for being here. It's so good to see you. If you want to join us on camera, please do. If you're off camera, that's fine too. We're just glad that you're here. And so, with that, I will pass things on to Raquel Garcia from Hard Beauty out in Colorado. Thank you, Raquel.
Oh, welcome everyone. Thank you so much, Erin. It is great to be in company with all of you this evening. It is good to see faces, new faces, familiar faces. I had already said hi to Tom and said hi to Tim. Tim, it's so good to see you. I've not seen you in quite some time. Miss Autumn is here also. She's from Colorado. Good to see you. Um, this idea actually came about because I'll never forget, Mobilize Recovery was they were doing the bus tours. And Colorado was one previously, and then it was not going to be. And I remember going and to Aaron and to the Mobilize team and said, "Hey, could Colorado please be a stop this year?" And to Ryan and um, it wasn't planned. It was not. We weren't going to be a stop. And I said, "If you just give me one chance, I'll knock it out of the park. I promise you. I promise you." So we did. So actually, Stigma-Free Zones came about from kind of an inspiration with Mobilize Recovery. Um, I also live in a very highly stigmatized community in Colorado. So it kind of came out of this inspiration for what Mobilize was doing. We were bringing it to a very somewhat affluent, highly stigmatized community. I did that with intention previously. It had been in like a city in Denver where it's kind of less, but I'm really trying to change it in my community where I live. And so, part of it, it's that it's part story, well, it's part toolkit, and then it's a part call to action is what we're going to be working on today. So I just want to say thank you to the organizers. I want to say thank you to the Opioid Response Network. I want to say thank you to Mobilize Recovery, to Aaron, to Ryan, to Garrett, to Jacqueline, everybody at the Mobilize team for allowing me to be in this space with all of you. Um, we needed to change the way we did things in Colorado. It has been a challenge where I live specifically. So if you want to look where I live in Douglas County, Colorado. Douglas County, Colorado is 880 square miles of land. We were once rural, but not now. Um, it is a very somewhat affluent, where their motto is we are the healthiest, wealthiest county in the state. Um, where we kind of deny substance use disorders and deny trouble. But if you all know, I'm a woman in active and sustained recovery. And I like to remind them that I sold blow to Parker, Colorado, which is within their county. So no, that's not actually true. And I try to be honest about that to kind of help remove the stigma in our county. So we'll kind of go through kind of how it started. We'll do some background, and then I'm going to give you the toolkit. It's easy for you to access. Actually, anybody in the state of Colorado can access the toolkit pretty easy. But we launched this when Mobilize Recovery came to Colorado about 3 years ago. So why this all started? Like many of you, I just lost my camera and I can't stand when I can't see people. Okay. Um, why this all started was um, because of Shauna. So I am a woman who's been in active and sustained recovery for over 16 years. For me, that means I've not drank alcohol or misused a prescription since then. And this started not with a toolkit, but it started with a lot of grief, with a question that I couldn't shake. Why does asking for help still cost people everything? Why? Right? Why does it still cost people everything to ask for help? And in my county, we can set up a tent and we will be giving out Narcan, and people will say, "Look, I don't go anywhere where that would ever be in my life, be part of my story." Very much in denial about what happens in our county. I lost my best friend Shauna to a disease that people around her treated like a moral failure instead of a medical one. And that loss is the floor, and everything else in this work that I've created is built on that moment from the loss of my best friend. Back then in our small town, Narcan was not even on the ambulance when they came to save her. It was something that was only in the hospitals and it was not on the bus. Um, Changed everything for me. You know, I did grow up in kind of a rural, or not a rural, but a suburb of Colorado in Aurora, Colorado, where every house looks the same, except maybe the garage is flipped and, it's painted a different color, right? Where I never thought this would be part of my story. My addiction comes from hospitals and doctors, from after being overly prescribed medication after a back and brain surgery. And back then, they didn't tell me that once I started the pills, that I would not be unable to stop those medications. And the sad story is that I tried to run for myself to a small town called Palmer Lake, Colorado, where I had shook the alcohol, dropped the cocaine, but dang it, I could not let go of those pills. People said, well, why don't you just stop? And if any of you in this room have had an opioid use disorder, it's not as simple as just stopping, right? Um, Back then, nobody was talking about what it takes to get off medications. There was no opportunities for medicated assisted recovery or treatment options. And that's kind of what was the catalyst. Shauna passed away in October of 2009, and I recovered in January of 2010 in a small town. When I got sober, there were only three people of color in my town, myself, Darnell, and Sylvia. And so when you are one of the three people of color in the town and tragedy hits, everybody knows. Everybody knows what has occurred. So if anybody, how many of you are from a small rural community? Yeah, it's a big difference, right? Even today, if people aren't ready, yeah, thank you so much for sharing. It's hard because I still people, at the grocery store. It's not easy to get lost in a small town. And everybody did know exactly what happened to Shauna. So it's part of my story. Um, so really what we started off with Hard Beauty and our organization was we started off with peer coaching, right? We're doing peer coaching one-on-one with individuals. I was born during COVID. Our organization blew up during COVID, and I live in an area where people still did not talk a lot about substances. One of the very few people that lived out loud in my recovery. I was so scared, honestly, that I would pick up again, that I told everybody I was in recovery. It's very easy to go to the local pub where everybody's hanging out and pick up a drink again. And actually, what the saddest part of that story is the guy that owned the bar, if you came in with your coin, you could use your coin to buy your first drink. Sad. Sad. Yeah, right, Trisha? Like, that's what he said. If you actually are going to get sober, you can use your coin to buy your drink because he didn't see a lot of people actually staying sober. We did it in the virtual world because during COVID we had no buildings. We were not meeting in person. And it also allowed for people, in my opinion, who are not ready to be out in the open, who wanted a little even more privacy, especially in a small town, when if there's only one place for a meeting hall, everybody knows why you're there on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock in the evening at the basement of that church. There's only one thing that happens in the one church, in the one town at 8 o'clock in the evening. And what I loved about it was that people allowed themselves to get online and start figuring out what recovery looked like for them. I had people who would call me and say, "Hey, Raquel, I'm a corporate, I'm an entrepreneur. And am I an addict? Do I have something wrong with me?" And they started to question themselves if they had an addiction issue. Well, the reality is, COVID shut us all down and people started picking up beverages or substances maybe a little earlier than they were used to. Instead of the 5 o'clock cocktail, it started to be a 2 o'clock and then a noon cocktail. Maybe the joint or the substance you're using may have been in the evening, and maybe it grew, or the time that you started shortened. So I spent a lot of time online just working with people to say, I don't know, does it matter? It sounds like it's starting to maybe cause you some trouble in your life. So it was really this one-on-one coaching peer model where we really started very generic, working with people online to allow them the space. And because I'd lived out loud, people felt comfortable slipping in my inbox on Facebook. Hey, Raquel, I think I'm struggling. I'd like to talk. It's kind
Come
of almost happened before I even know peer
on, Oreo,
coaching was something that I could get
come in.
certified for. I was just doing it because people knew and trusted me. Now, growth happens, and our organization has grown quite a bit. And now we operate several programs. One of our most popular programs is Operation Care, where we work alongside hospitals to do a response program. We respond in 2 ERs, and we respond to 10 labor and delivery spaces where we work very closely with women who are struggling and families with perinatal substance use disorder. Part of my story also. Our Rise and Restore program really works alongside people where entry and reentry of carceral settings. One of my favorite moments is that this year we've been able to, and this is all has to do with stigma, is we build programs with these institutions. So we built stigma and bias trainings inside hospitals where maybe the doctor or the nurse is giving most of the instruction, but they sit with us with people with lived experience, learning how to better talk to us and about us and work with us. We get to do the same things in jails. We get to do the same with the police officers. And in our highly stigmatized community, we are the first peer organization to jointly create a stigma and bias training alongside Lone Tree Police Department, where we actually worked with officers to really build a program that works alongside. We've been able to retrain 65 police officers in that jurisdiction on how to better communicate and talk with those of us that are either in recovery or those of us that are in active use. And then our discovery, recovery, and unbroken programs. And then this idea of this Stigma-Free Colorado launched, along with Mobilized Recovery, and now we have grown into 5 counties in our state. I'm in Douglas County, which sits on one side of the divide. Colorado's a big, long mountain range. And on the other side of the divide, my coworker, Vanessa, works really hard to reduce stigma and bias in mountain communities. So we've kind of grown. And the statewide campaign, we do a lot of anti-stigma campaigns. We do a lot of advocacy work in Colorado. I was just telling Erin, I was really blessed right before I here. I was able to go sit in on a clemency hearing for a woman who has been incarcerated since she was 19 years old, and who's done 29 years for being honestly in active use when she was 19, right? So, and now we get to do this, and I think, tooting our own horn, Aaron, I do believe Hard Beauty's done a really good job of reducing the stigma in our state. Someone will say, y'all make recovery kind of cool. I'm like, that's kind of neat. That's cool. And people are talking about it more. So stigma is still killing people, though, if I'm really honest, especially in my community. My cousin got out after 38 years. That's amazing, Clayton. That's amazing. I love that story. Stigma is still killing people, period. Yeah, recovery definitely is cool. Yeah, it is cool. But stigma is still killing people. I can see it when people don't know how to speak about it. I think what we do with people with lived experience, I always tell people, look, I'm a safe place for you to get it wrong first, right? It's not about getting everything right and knowing what to say. Maybe it's an opportunity to just try things on, to try to get it out. And in our community, especially in Douglas County, I think we've done a good job. There's a commissioner that lives in our state or in our county. He was the first one in our doors to meet us. And I've seen him in the last 3 years start to share his story. And at our event last year, it was the first time he ever spoke about his partner who struggled with benzos. And he got on a microphone. Aaron, I'll tell another story in a minute, but Aaron was witness to another government official who shared their recovery story and a family member for the first time. But the scale of the problem in Colorado is still quite large. Um, I wanted to pull some current data. I have a data nerd in the state that is going to help me pull some more current data because things kind of stop for us here. But 1 in 10 Colorado residents ages 12 and over report substance misuse disorder. 968,000 Coloradans currently estimated to have an active SUD. And 400,000 Coloradans are estimated to be in recovery, though. from substance use disorder. And if you've been in recovery a long time, I think what they used to say is, and this is, I'm an OG, so I've been around 16 years. They're like, look, when you do this, you're going to see more people die than live. How many of you guys remember hearing that? Am I the only one? Trisha, you heard that? Sonia, yeah, right? Look, this is where most people don't make it. And I kind of call bullshit. I get to see a lot of people making it. No, not everybody does. But I think that is what I've seen is that more people are seeing recovery as a possibility, right? And I always tell people, look, I'm not here to impress you, but I'm here to impress upon you what happens when people recover. Right? That's what I love. So stigma is still the number one reason people don't seek help. Um, I can share that, even stigma and bias doesn't have to only just show up in substances, right? Worried that you'll be judged or not understood, I think runs the gamut in a lot of areas. But what is stigma? It's a mark of disgrace that results from the judgment of others. When someone is labeled by their illness, they experience judgment and prejudice, shame, embarrassment, distress, hopelessness, excuse me, and reluctance to accept help. I still people, or family members, right? They can't speak about their loved ones. I sat in that room today and watched Cynthia Gonzalez is the woman I'm trying to have freed from prison, and I listened to her sister today struggle and really struggle to talk and hear and listen to her sister's story today after 29 years. And we all know what a substance, I don't know why it says misuse, substance use disorder is. It's a medical condition involving uncontrolled use of substance despite harmful consequences to the point that day-to-day functioning becomes impaired. People keep using even though it's causing harm. So the reasons most are the most re the sorry, the reasons people don't seek help. Shame, fear of judgment from friends and family, fear of judgment from coworkers, and judgment rooted in lack of knowledge or training. Now, where I can see this the most is because I work in a lot of healthcare settings. I remember walking into a hospital and I was shocked when I shared with the hospitalist. I said, my name is Raquel and I'm a woman in recovery. And I said, I celebrate 15 years without a drink. And she said, really? Guess what? I got my 6-month chip the other day. I was floored. I said, hey, you should keep repeating that. But I don't know if she walks around her hospital publicly sharing that she had a substance use disorder. But when we share, we open up the opportunity for others to share. And I can tell you in the last 3 years that I've been working with hospitals, I've seen more and more people in those highly stigmatized job roles kind of take their guard down. And maybe they'll share with me first that they're struggling with a substance use disorder. And then I watch, it's usually about a year. Then they get a little brave and they start speaking it outside of the privacy of our conversations. So language is key. And I'm sure we're all familiar if you're working in this field with helpful language versus the harmful language. I get to do a lot of training of this inside medical spaces and inside carceral settings, or whether I'm working with the police department. Person with a substance use disorder, substance use or misuse, a return to use or recurrence to use. Medicated assisted recovery, I kind of like that versus the treatment piece because it could be a longer piece. And I always think about treatment was the shortest, most expensive part of my recovery. I went to rehab, cost $30,000. I spent 30 days in that space. No, I think they only paid for 21 days. So I kind of think that medicated assisted recovery is a little bit longer time. So I kind of changed my language a little bit. Positive or negative lab results when I'm working with people, and they like to say whether we've got a clean or a dirty UA, especially when you're in hospital settings. So I like to tell them positive or negative lab results. A person struggling to maintain recovery, and maybe a person involved with the criminal justice system. I like legal system over justice because, I don't know how just it is anymore. I've seen heads nodding. I'm not the only one. And then I'm not going to go through the harmful language because we all know what we don't want to be called. And I do love medicated assisted recovery. I was blessed just this last week. The National Opioid Conference was here in Colorado, and I got to meet this amazing individual, Tracy Gardner, who is the executive director of the Black Harm Reduction Network. And I love what she says. Harm reduction is about more than just surviving, it's about thriving, right? It's about allowing someone the opportunity to get their head on straight, get their God-given mind back a little bit, and to be able to make decisions for themselves. So, medicated assisted recovery, it's a common misconception that medications like methadone, naloxone, and buprenorphine just substitute one drug for another. They don't produce a high. They reduce cravings and withdrawal and help restore balance in the brain so the patient or the client or the individual can focus on recovery. Medicated assisted recovery has been shown to improve rates of patient survival, increase social function and treatment retention, and decrease overdose deaths and implicit opioid use, and improve outcomes for opioid-dependent pregnant women and infants. This one is really important to me. I've had to reduce the stigma and bias of pregnant individuals choosing to use medicated assisted recovery, and that's a whole process. And I get to go do interceptions inside hospitals when a woman who may be using medicated assisted recovery support is going to get a call from CPS because somebody has judged her for that. And I always say, hey, doctor, hey, nurse, you should be celebrating her for doing what was best for her and her baby. So recovery has many pathways. Last week I was on the stage with Haner Hernandez and with Tracy, and we were talking a lot about the different pathways of recovery. Look, my husband, he raised chickens for the first year and a half of his recovery. I was born into a 12-step idea. I thought it was the only way you could recover. I convinced myself of that and tried to pressure him on that. But really, his recovery involved raising chickens for a year and a half. And he celebrates 8 years in recovery. So I'm not here to dictate what people need for their supports, how that looks. Jennifer, I love what you said. I don't like medication assisted at all. We don't use that for any other medical conditions. We don't call insulin medicated medication assisted. Good view. Good view. I like that. So we'll talk a little bit about the stigma-free zone model and what we created. We'll go from like the how to, and we'll talk about this more of like in a working session. Now, everything I'm going to talk about is Colorado and my local community, but please feel free to adapt it. I'm going to have you go to my website where you actually can download the toolkit yourself, and then literally no plagiarizing, just take it and edit it and customize it for yourself. It does not bother me. That's why it's there. But I want to give you an opportunity to just have some visuals. It's hard for me to sometimes work from a blank slate. And if I have a little bit of a toolkit or something I can use to kind of adapt to what I'm doing in my community, please feel free. I'm not here to covet the idea. So what is a stigma-free zone? It is a town, county, or business that publicly commits through a signed resolution to treat substance use disorder as the medical condition it is and to make local recovery resources visible and known. One of the things I realized in our community is that we didn't have safe places to go, not safe places for people to be employed. I literally, where I'm at right now in my community, looks one way during the day. And as soon as the lights go out, it looks like a different way because people stay hidden until the lights come on. And then those who feel like they can come out of the woodworks do. And we've worked really hard to change that. We educate residents and organizations that substance use disorder is a disease and must be treated as such. We help raise awareness. We provoke dialogue, so we talk a lot about it. We build belonging. We reduce isolation, and we connect people to care. The way I know this works so well is even in my community, we have a lot of nonprofit organizations. Affluent communities, honestly, do have a lot of nonprofits who got people with money who want to do good in the world. But what they don't know how to do is touch anything when it comes to a substance use disorder, especially with their families. And I love it. Probably about a month ago, I had another nonprofit or executive director in my community who said, Raquel, I can help this individual with food. I can get them some clothes. But this person I care about, I cannot help him with his substance use disorder. And so brought that person into my office. I just got to talk to them last week. I think it was Wednesday. He completed detox. He's on his way doing a 2-year program. And so I know that just even by family members not knowing how to talk about it, if they don't know how, they know how to bring them to me and we will help them. So who is involved in our stigma-free zones? Everyone. There is a statewide initiative built for all residents, young and old, from bus drivers to school administrators. Every community member is a stakeholder in breaking down stigma. Everyone. Everyone. Even our existence. We are still the only peer recovery organization in our entire county. We have partnered with our county. Our opioid settlement dollars paid for a campaign to start going and talking about substance use, but also talking about recovery more. And they did a campaign for myself and a few individuals in our county to be put at the beginning of movie theaters, at the beginning of movies played in our movie theaters, where we're starting to talk about recovery and bringing that to light. Now, we've had a treatment center, Parker Valley Hope, that's been here for years, but it was stuck in the back of Parker. It's actually where I went to treatment, and people didn't talk about it. People actually kind of didn't love that it was in a community, and people would have negative things to say. But we've also started to bring that to light. So municipal and county leaders, I'll talk to you a little bit about that. Like I said, school administrators and educators, we are the only peer organization that's got into 2 of our high schools. And for the last 2 years, our organization, Sabrina, who's actually one of my bonus kids, goes into the local high school and she teaches Narcan trainings. We call it Staying Alive, our Staying Alive program. And we're the only educators right now that do that in 2 high schools. And that was somebody who found us on a social media post and said, hey, I could do this in my health class, but I would rather y'all come in to my health class. And why don't y'all talk about, they hear about, all the other things from their health teacher. Sometimes kids need a different voice and a different perspective. And so we've done a lot in the school administration piece in our county. Healthcare and behavioral health providers. We are also I get to say a lot about our opioid settlement funds, but we're also funded to go inside our local hospital to help out that system. And what I like to say is, if you're a peer, you can start and borrow this, is that we are harm reduction by our existence as a workforce. We are. People with lived experience, we are harm reduction by our very existence. Because it's not just about the people that we are serving, it's about the systems we support. And if you want to see, I had a doctor the other day said, boy, when I see y'all come in, I'm just like, let's help somebody. And we help reduce the harm on the systems that you support too. So keep reminding people that it's not just about the people we were helping in the door. It's about offering support to those systems as well. Local business owners, our coffee shop. We're going to talk a lot about this coffee shop, who's actually owned by my mayor, Mayor Gray, who's just been an advocate ever since we started this. Aaron got to see him sign his declaration. He's been a champion of our work ever since. Faith communities and civic groups, right? I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if churches, we have one up the street that does it for us, who is a stigma-free zone, who says, look, if you come in here, we will just offer you support and love, nothing more. So getting other faith-based and civic communities involved. And then, of course, peer recovery organizations, right? Stigma-free zones, putting up around the community where people can go, that they will know that if they need help, that they will get the direction that they need and the support they need. And what we do is when we offer this stigma-free zone, we created a sticker that goes in the window of the business, which was a challenge at first. Nobody really wanted to do that. But it's grown over time that people are willing to put the sticker in that says they're proud to be stigma free. Let people know. Let people know that this is a place where you can get support. Oh, I love that, Trisha. Love that. And you're right, Richard. Harm reduction works, but it is stigmatized negatively. In my county, it's very challenging. We cannot talk about, we can do Narcan, that's about as far as we've gotten, and some testing strips. But anything other than that right now still is a challenge for me in my community. And I've been doing this for 5 years, and I live in this county, not just work in it. So there's 6 steps to becoming a stigma-free zone. You need to engage in education, adopt a local stigma-free campaign resolution. I'll show you what that looks like. Participate in stigma reduction and MAR training. So if you're going to do this, then what we offer is a training. I will come into your organization, give me about 45 minutes or a staff meeting, and we'll talk about what this is. You got to go beyond just a sticker in the window, right? It's my opportunity to like really connect with the businesses and organizations that I'm with. And so we offer this additional training. We can come into your company meeting. We'll talk about stigma. And the other thing that I'll do with the business is, look, you have had somebody in your organization or your business who has struggled. They've just never felt brave enough to say it. Because how many of you, if you feel comfortable saying so, were using a substance and you were employed? Right? And how many of you felt comfortable going to that employer and saying something? So many people, and it is proven that most people, that people in active use are employed. Where it's this other idea. Yeah, nope. Richard said, nope, not saying it. It's another idea that that the stigma and bias is that everybody, and I'm just going to be very judgmental or put a kind of an idea, but in my community, it's like everybody who is using substances has a brown bag under a bridge, is unhoused. But that's just not true. We place the stigma-free promotional materials publicly. We want them to like say it, encourage that with social media posts to let people know. That one's still a challenge in my community. I haven't even got my town will sign this pledge and they'll do the sticker. But right now, my community won't even allow you to comment on their social media because they like to keep everything like nice and pristine. So the public part has been a challenge. But I'm not here to push people. I'll wait till they're ready. And we build our stigma-free action plan. Where do we think this would be most impactful? And we like to do it in places where people are hanging out. Lots of coffee shops, sandwich shops. We have cute little shopping areas in our community where we've worked. And then we have some sample press material that we kind of send out. So number one, remember, engage in education. Use this as an opportunity to educate your community. We start every community partnership with a foundational training session. Same content, whether we're talking to a town council or a single small business owner. Don't take a lot of their time. Just want to give you a little bit of information. Here's why, because when you're doing an event in your community and you want them to come, they have a little bit of background about who you are, what you do. It's easier to go back to them for philanthropy later, just saying. We do a formal signed proclamation adopted by a town council, county board, or business leadership declaring the entity to be a stigma-free zone. And the toolkit includes a full sample resolution template ready to adapt. So you can go on there, you can borrow it, you can find your own language. This was way before ChatGPT, so we did not chat it. But I'm sure you can create something if you want to that's a little bit more cohesive. Remember, we do stigma-free and MAR training for residents. We actually are for staff and employees and community groups. And because we're funded in our county, we offer that at no charge. And make it visible. So this was the chief of our county jail. His name is Kevin Duffy. He just retired. I'm sad. I miss him. Although he stays connected, he's actually, let me tell you how well this works. He's joining my board. See how this works? He came to the community and said, when I met him, he said, Raquel, I know there's a problem in my community. I know I work in the jail, and my jail is a direct reflection of my community. We want to not believe that, right? But it is. And he said, but nobody listens to me. So he was one of the first ones to sign a stigma-free zone for the county jail. He came into Mobilize Recovery. This is actually at our event with Mobilize, where he proudly got up and spoke and said, I'm proud to be stigma free, and I'm claiming our jail as such as well. If I build that local action plan, spend some time, this is fun with your team. Where should we introduce ourselves? Um, create a living plan tailored to the size and culture of your community, not a copy and paste checklist. So this is the one thing you're going to have to do for yourselves. My community looks very different than your community. Russ, your community doesn't look like mine. Tim, yours doesn't look like Adam's. Sonia, yours doesn't look like Sandy's. Right? Spend some time. The toolkit lays out some concrete moves like training rollout, stakeholder announcements, social content, and reoccurring stigma culture checks. Go back and check on your organizations. This isn't a one and done thing. It's an opportunity to go back and re-engage with those businesses. And we do a biannual culture check-in. Hey, so how's it going? Have you had any turnover in your business, in your organization? Would you like another training? How is that going? Have you had any people who are struggling? And it's also a way for them to know if their people are struggling, or their employees, like, look, you cannot be the expert about it. If you're someone of your staff members come and they're struggling, you can just say, hey, could you come over? Let's just take you over to Hard Beauty, just like the gentleman did about 3 weeks ago. This is Mayor Gray. I put him on my tell the story publicly because he is one of our champions. And Aaron was there when he actually shared his story. We were quite shocked, actually. He did not tell me he was going to share a story, but he really felt compelled to share his story and allowed me to share his picture publicly. So in the toolkit, we give a sample press release so that the business or organization we're working with, if you can take the burden off of them and give them something easy to cut and paste, they're more likely to do it than just to ask them to do it. So that's another thing for you. Remember, take the burden off them, make it easy, cut, paste. Hey, why don't you just put this out here? Look, I'll send you a picture. And if you could publicly put that out there, that would be great. So the press kit follows the exact town declares to be stigma-free zone. So you'll see it, but we kind of made it really fancy and did it like on scroll paper and did like a gold seal in the corner to make it real official. But this is Mayor Gray. He is the mayor of Castle Rock, where my offices are. He was really amazing because he got on and told the story, which was really shocking. I remember there was a lobbyist in that room, Erin, who text messaged me, and she goes, "Did you stage this?" And I said, "Ma'am, I couldn't have staged this if I tried." But Mayor Gray got on a microphone and started sharing the story of his cousin and him, who he said they both played football when they were younger. He said, we were both offered heroin at the same time. To be honest, I didn't do it because I didn't want to, because I did. I did it because I was scared. I didn't do it because I was scared. His cousin did do it and ended up with a use disorder. And we just shocked us all that he got on stage and shared this story. And he comes to high five me. We actually, because of this campaign too, and the work we've done in our county, our organization is invited to this concert called First Fridays every the first Friday of the month in the summer. I just saw Mayor Gray not too long ago. I'm sad he's on his way out. Always scary when we get new leadership in this county. He came over and just said, "Thank you, Raquel, for all you guys have done in the county." I get approached about the declaration. And he comes to high five us every time, but we actually get to set up a sober opportunity with sober margarita slushies right next to the bar where they serve liquor every one of those First Friday concerts. So it is about being anti-stigma, but stigma is about relationships. If you really want to look, and you can't shame people for their experiences. I'm going to tell you right now, even in a hospital, I've had to work with the NICU nurse. And if her only experience is holding a child that is struggling, and that's all her experience is for 5 days, and that's true, then who am I to rob her of that experience? And what I tell her is, look, I understand that must be challenging for you to work with babies who are struggling every day. But what she never sees is the mom that makes it. That's not her experience. And so by building relationships, really honestly, you can come with all these stigma campaigns, you can do all of the things, but the way we have reduced the most stigma in our county is by building relationship. It's hard to hate people up close. It is hard to hate people up close. And when they see and experience recovery, that's how we shift minds. So we also give a resource library in the toolkit where people can learn about stigma opportunities. So we have a thing called Lift the Label in Colorado. Lift the Label works really hard to lift the label and remove labels from individuals. We have a cool thing called the Recovery Card Project, where they've made just like regular cards, but they're all based on recovery in the state of Colorado. We get them free all over the state. It's a great campaign. We've actually given those out in about 3 prisons in the last year. So we do stigma reduction and substance use education, and we give them places that they can go, right? The Opioid Response Network, Why Words Matter, the Evidence for Stigma and Change. We talk about harm reduction and medicated assisted supports, where they can get support. For us, we have a great organization in the state called High Rockies Harm Reduction because we do a lot of mountain work. And High Rockies High Reduction, her name's Maggie. She's a great individual. She rides around on a van all day, scombing the mountains and giving out harm reduction supplies. Southern Colorado Harm Reduction is great down in Pueblo. The Rural Recovery Network, we do a lot of rural work in the state of Colorado. I mean, Colorado is mostly rural. Everyone used to it because they see Denver and the suburbs, but Colorado is actually mostly rural. Obviously, Faces and Voices Recovery, Hard Beauty, and then we also give, suicide intervention and prevention. So we give them a little, a list of resources and education for themselves. So inside the toolkit, I'm watching my time. Inside the toolkit, we give them the declaration, so you can get in there. And I'll give you guys all a website that you can go to now, and you'll all be able to download that. So I'm going to give you, let me put it in the chat. I thought I'd be prepared on that. Hold on one second. And we're about to do an improved and update our stigma-free toolkit because it needs a revival after 3 years. That's the other thing is that especially, let me just be honest, funding has changed across our state. And so that is actually kind of forcing us to redo our toolkit, making sure that what we have is available to everyone. So in the chat, I went ahead and put the link for the Hard Beauty Stigma-Free Zone Colorado Toolkit. You'll see there'll be a page for you to add. You can add your information. You don't have to add an image. But I want to show you how people become part of our stigma-free zone community. We wanted to make it easy, right? I'm always going to have a conversation with someone. But at the end of the day, if I can make it easy for them to access, it talks about what the campaign is, how it works. And then at the bottom of the screen, it shows people how they can join the campaign. But we also wanted to just give them a resource library if they don't want to join the campaign and they just need a resource. So the resource is quick. When you complete the join the campaign, you receive your toolkit when you fill out the information. We did the logo because we add logos to the bottom, and when we're doing social media, we can actually share that easier. So we try to come up with as, simple steps for people to be able to join the campaign. But then once you complete that, a screen will pop up and you get your toolkit. You don't have to wait for an email or anything like that. Um, You can make your own stickers. I mean, we didn't make it fancy. It's off Canva. It wasn't anything complicated to come up with a sticker for ourselves in your state, or if you want to make it really specific. Colorado's kind of a big thing, but we're kind of going to do one this year. We've thought about making it maybe more county specific or town specific so that it feels not so big and it feels more local. So we kind of make it easy for them, right? This is just a generic um, public messaging, the idea for them to use, right? It eliminates stigma, it builds community, it gives opportunity for support recovery. So like we're in the promoting recovery, right? We support recovery. In our community, it was hard to I think some of the challenges we faced were more like within government than community. We that seems to still be our challenge even today. I've made a really big point when I shake people's hands at the concert series to say, "Hey, did you, when people are excited about it, because now we notice that people come in and give us high fives and are celebrating their recovery because we're living it out loud. I got a guy named Ken who comes in here 3 times a week. He's an old timer, he's a rancher, and he's been sober 45 years. And he said, "Man, I've been out here for years, Raquel. Ain't never seen nothing like you. Ain't never seen nothing like you." And he likes to just come in his flip-flops once a week now. So people are in recovery too. It's not just about reducing stigma, it's about people who have who have recovered in silos, who didn't build community. Ken is one of my favorite humans. He cracks me up. He just came in yesterday. I mean, I'm just thinking about him. He makes me laugh. He is just a hoot, hooting, hollering. He's a handful. So you could go from single zones to a county-wide initiatives, right? So maybe start small. I'm kind of a big thinker. I did the whole state of Colorado to start with, mainly because we had mobilized recovery coming out. But like I said, I am now going to reduce that. I think instead of doing this whole state of Colorado idea, you know, we work in Garfield County and Eagle County, and we're doing Douglas County, and maybe we're just going to say stigma-free Douglas County and just making it something more tangible. Like I said, this is something that was a big idea. And even as an organization, we've done statewide work, but we've actually, as an organization, reduced ourselves to doing something more localized, more intimate within our own communities. Plus, I think even Aaron, now that I can look back, it was a big idea. It was a big idea to even have Mobilize come to where we were. But I'm excited to actually shrink this down a bit. And actually, honestly, you asking me to present Aaron made me think, golly, I think I want to rework this a little bit. I think this statewide initiative could be something more small and intimate in my county.
Mm. Yeah, I think that when you do it really well in one place and then other counties see it and you kind of use it as like a model, like other counties can like adapt the model, like do it really well in this one spot, and that kind of like spreads across the state. It makes sense.
Yeah, I that's exactly what I'm thinking. And I literally, when I was building this, I have this now I have a whole idea list that I created on the other side. Like, we're gonna rework this idea a little bit.
Mm.
So I'm glad you brought it to my attention. I love it. So, we launched with Mobilize Recovery and we did the first zones on a grand scale, which was okay. But like I said, now I think it's gonna, as we go it a little deepen, like we're gonna deepen it. I think that's where we're at now, Aaron, is to bring it back and do it a little deeper within our local community. We have gotten some statewide recognition for the work that we do, which I'm really proud of. But I like what Aaron said. Let's just do a little bit better at home. Let's
Mhm.
do it a little bit better at home. Like I said, I think the statewide recognition worked, right? We've gotten a lot of insight. We've gotten a lot of people excited about what we do, inquiring about it. But then, even if I thought about how to teach people to do it, even in my counties or other peer organizations, which I get the blessing to do a lot of, I would reimagine this more in doing it very localized in your community. So, what actually moved the needle was ready-to-made templates. Look, people are busy, y'all. Let me be honest. If you ask people to do a heavy lift, they're not going to pick it up. If you can come up with as much as you can ahead of time, you're winning. Remember, lived experience is your credibility. And then a cross organization resource list. If you've got other people in your community that you could do this with, right? Like, do you have a harm reduction agency? Do you have crisis resources? I'm going to do it with the Help and Hope Center down the street. Could we band together to make this a little bit more impactful?
Mm.
So, like I said, the honest friction points where a signed resolution isn't the finish line. You guys, that's not it. You got to keep engaging your communities. It's not enough to just get this signed in a sticker. Um, Funding structures don't reward sustained stigma, right? So remember, like I said, for me, I had this grand idea, this whole Colorado idea, but that didn't work for me. So now, even funding wise, it is forcing me to come back home and do it smaller, much better, much better. And then training needs repeated, not a single session. So keep going out there, keep educating folks. It was never really about the sign. What surprised me most wasn't how many towns wanted it, it was who showed up to help carry it, right? It was. I was really shocked. I thought it would be a lot more peer organizations, which I did not get a lot in. Actually, it was some of these individuals, hospitals, doctors willing to share their stories, my jail chief, the mayor. The people who show up in someone's hardest moment, who keep showing up after crisis has passed, are lanterns in the dark. This campaign gave a lot of quiet lanterns a public reason to step forward, right? Gives people an opportunity to speak up. So pick one room. I want you guys to identify one space, one place in your community where you can ignite this. Where is one area that you can start this zone?
Mhm.
Take that resolution that I gave you, take the toolkit. Remember, it's a 2-year-old toolkit, so I want you to reimagine it. Now I'm inspired to do mine. And then just send one email. Hey, can I have coffee? Can we talk to you? Go shake a hand. That's your action from me. What's one area? So if anyone can put in the chat, tell me one space where you know or you're thinking about maybe starting this stigma-free zones in your community.
Yeah. While they're in the chat, I want to share this quick story. This
Yeah,
where
come on.
like I had this advocacy group in New Jersey that was they were kind of dealing with like some stigma with law enforcement. Just like it was kind of like when law enforcement was like they're first on the scene, they have to Narcan people, and they had some officers that like really got it, and then the other ones that really were just like kind of pushing back against it. And these advocates were like, well, how do we like change that? Like, how do we start like right there with just with law enforcement? And they had this idea. It's like, well, let's invite all law enforcement, and they're like, well. And I like that how you said like mayors speak and you find your allies to do the speaking because it's like law enforcement listens to other law enforcement or healthcare workers listen to other healthcare workers, right? Like you figure out like who the messenger is in all of this, and so the advocates were like, we're gonna recognize and honor the officers that have saved a life with Narcan, that have reversed an overdose, and invite all the other officers to watch them. Um, and it was interesting, like being in this room with like, it's like I'm like early recovery when I got surrounded by law enforcement, talking to people about my story. And like we had some good speakers and everything. And then like at the end of the event, it's like there's probably like 100 officers and their families, right? Like their families. There's a lot of people in that room. And we had this officer come up and talk about the like saving this person's life and responding to a scene. And then right after he got done speaking, we had the kid that he saved that he was in 2.5 years of recovery at by that time, or like maybe a little less than that. But like and he spoke and like all these law enforcement were watching this kid speak, and I was like watching their faces and like something switch. You could see it switch, and everybody like in that room, and they went from like skeptical to like advocates and allies for Narcan like within a span of like an hour. And really the 10 minutes that it took for the officer and the kid that he saved to tell their stories and so I think that like it's good that you have this all-in approach of like we're gonna do this in the jails, we're gonna do this um in hospitals. We're going to do this with law enforcement. I think a lot of times like people are skeptical that they can like change,
Agreed.
like shift like a healthcare worker's mind or a law enforcement officer's mind. And I want to challenge people on that because there are ways to like tell that story and really like humans are humans. Like you can tell that story and really have that person understand like why it is like law enforcement and hospital workers probably see like the worst part of addiction
Yes,
all the time. So it's like I can't even blame them for
right.
having the negative public perception that they have, right? And so I think that you know, I, and so while people are thinking about like, hey, where can I start? Like I want to challenge you, be like, oh, that might be too hard. No, like you can do it, And so
Yeah.
it all starts with that idea. And so I wanted to share that. And it might take a little time. Like I remember we did like a recovery month event in New Jersey, and I had a friend of mine in recovery one of the speakers, and then we had a law enforcement officer on the panel as well. And like in the middle of the panel, the law enforcement officer turns to my friend in recovery, and he's like, "I don't know if you remember this, or I don't know if you remember me, but I was working undercover, and I tried so hard to get you to sell me drugs, and you just would not." He's like, "And you knew I was a cop, and you would not sell me drugs." And he's like, "I'm so happy to see you in recovery."
Yes.
And then he was like, and then you like disappeared. I didn't know where you went. And like he was in recovery, you know? And so like it was just cool that even though that kind of took a couple years, he was like, oh, okay, I get it. Like we have to get people help, And so I think that we can be optimistic and and confident in the changes that we can make in our own communities. And this campaign and this template is a very simple model to try to apply, even if it's just in one hospital or if it's in,
Right.
and so I just wanted to tell those stories because it got me thinking when you're talking.
No, I'm so glad you did, Aaron. It made me think too, when we were doing Lone Tree Jail or the Lone Tree Police Department, Jackie, and obviously it's also that training we do with formerly incarcerated individuals. And Jackie was giving the training, and one of the officers over there, and Jackie's like, wait a minute. The officer said something about faking sick. Jackie goes, oh my gosh, that it was me. All of a sudden Jackie's like talking to the officer that when Jackie would always fake sick so she could get out of her
Yeah.
cell. And so yeah, I think that too. I think there are these, and look at the humanity that shows up in those spaces, right? I think also we call it therapeutic reconciliation because you said something important is that they see the worst of us. I tell people I'm so sorry, and I will walk into a hospital and I'll say, I'm so sorry I kicked you and spit at you. And they're like, you don't have to apologize. It goes, my people, I'm speaking for all of us, but I did kick and spit at the doctors and the nurses when I would go into the hospital. So I want to make sure I own that part. That's part of our recovery is to own our part in in that experience of them. So I love that you brought that up, Erin. Um, so you guys, did everybody get that template filled out? Did you get access to it? Were you able to fill it out?
Yeah, we're gonna just so everybody knows too, like on recovery2026.org, we're gonna have this video with with the toolkit link,
Mhm.
with the sample resolution template, stuff like that. So that way you can just it can all be in one place.
Yep,
Yeah.
they'll make it ready for you. Um, so a recovery ready community isn't one without a problem. I love this quote I created. It's one that's done the work to be ready when someone asks for help. And that's really what I'm asking for, right? By just bringing a little bit of awareness when someone asks for help, I always say too, look, like you don't even have to know what the help is. You don't. A coffee shop isn't going to know. Say, you know what? I don't know. We're just part of this campaign. You could go hit up Hard Beauty down the street. They'd be happy to help you. We're just a partner in what they're doing because it's almost people don't know what to do when you say, yes, I want help. That's what I recognize walking into a lot of places. I have visited 28 hospitals in my state of Colorado, and I did hear a lot of stigma and bias when I was in there, like some words that just made me want to tick. But what I actually heard was, I'm afraid if I ask the person if they want help, if they say yes, I don't know what to do. That's actually what I heard more of than who people who do not want to help. People don't become hospitals and doctors and they don't become nurses and work in those spaces because they don't want to help people. They do, they just don't know how. Right. And I had a doctor the other day say, look, I can medically treat somebody, but I have no idea what it's like to struggle with a substance use disorder. I have no idea what it's like to be the partner of someone who struggles with a substance use disorder. And that's why we partner with Heart Beauty because they do. And I think this has really helped us, this stigma-free campaign, and being somebody who allows people to have their experience of us in active use is why we work so closely with law enforcement and hospitals. People have asked me all the time, what's the magic, Raquel? I don't shame them for their experience. That's the magic. I don't shame them for their experience. And I stay really close because it's hard to hate people up close. Really hard to hate people up close. So I just want to say thank you for joining me tonight. Thanks to Mobilize Recovery, thanks to the Opiate Response Network. Oh, my slide's all weird up there. It looks normal on my screen, but I apologize. Thanks to Erin for always asking me to do these things. You know, I get to teach a lot of things with Mobilize Recovery, whether it be on perinatal substance use disorder, recovery doulas, stigma-free zones. So just thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for coming out tonight. I know the end of the night Zoom call. It's like, oh, do I really want to go to? Yeah, I'm glad you came, and it's good to see you. And I did put the next month's RSVP in the chat at the beginning of the workshop, but I'll put it if you want to stick around for a couple more minutes. I'll make sure that they're here. And thank you so much, Raquel. It was a pleasure hearing